Hello everyone, today I'll give you a mini class on thoughtful management. This will be particularly useful when work pressures start to feel overwhelming. And I know many of you have felt that way before. I know I sure have. Imagine this scenario. You have deadlines looming. There's a flood of never-ending emails coming in, and the weight of expectations bearing down of you in front of a new client who you have to pitch to. In moments like this, having a strategy to control your thoughts becomes essential for maintaining our mental health and productivity. But why exactly is it so crucial? Impacts of irrational thoughts and paranoia. Let's consider the far-reaching impacts of irrational thoughts and paranoia. These mental patterns don't just confine themselves to the workplace. They seep into every aspect of our lives, affecting our relationships, our sense of well-being, and our overall quality of life. Picture constantly second-guessing the intentions of our loved ones, or interpreting innocent remarks as lightly veiled criticism. It's a recipe for strained relationships, heightened stress, and decreased overall satisfaction in life. This is exactly where knowing how to cognitively switch your brain into different gears will help. What is cognitive restructuring and cognitive diffusion? So, what can we do to counteract these disruptive thought patterns? This is where cognitive restructuring and cognitive diffusion step in. Cognitive restructuring involves actively challenging and changing our rational thoughts, while cognitive diffusion focuses on changing our relationship with those thoughts. And that will allow us to observe them without being overwhelmed by them. Cognitive restructuring was developed by psychologist Albert Elias in the mid-1950s based on earlier work of others, and its core component in cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT. You can use CBT to control and change your negative thoughts, which are sometimes linked to damaging behaviors. Cognitive restructuring, or cognitive reframing, is a therapeutic process that helps clients to discover, to challenge, and modify or replace the negative, irrational thoughts. Although it may seem overwhelmingly difficult to change your own ways of thinking, it's similar to learning any other skill. Yes, it is hard at first, but with time and with practice, it will become easier and easier to change your own negative thoughts and your beliefs. Cognitive restructuring is a cognitive technique whereby these unhelpful thoughts that lead to emotions such as anxiety and unhappiness are identified and examined for truth, for accuracy, and for validity, while at the same time more helpful thoughts are developed and strengthened. It also has been shown that children as young as 5 can benefit from cognitive therapy, provided it's delivered at an age-appropriate way, of course. Here, let me give you an example of each. Example of cognitive diffusion. Imagine facing a challenging situation at work. A nagging thought keeps popping up. I'm not good enough for this task. Instead of getting caught up in this thought and letting it dictate your actions, you can apply the cognitive diffusion techniques. You take a moment to acknowledge a thought without judgment. You recognize it as just a passing mental event. Then you grab your phone and record yourself saying that thought aloud. However, you use a voice changing app to alter your voice, making it sound comically high. It's not a normal thing to do this at work, so you may wear headphones when you listen to this back, or feel free to share the technique with your workmates and use this together. It'll help bring people together as you laugh at the silly voices. As you listen to the recording, you notice how the altered voice dismisses the seriousness of the thought. It starts to lose its power over you as you realize it's just a thought. It's not an actual reflection of your true capabilities. With this newfound perspective, you feel more empowered to confidently tackle the task at hand. Example of cognitive restructuring. Let's say you're constantly worrying about making decisions at work, which is causing you significant stress and anxiety. The negative thought pattern is affecting your performance and your overall well-being. To address this, you decide to apply cognitive restructuring techniques. First, you have to identify the irrational thought, such as, if I make a mistake, it'll be catastrophic. You recognize that this belief is not based on evidence and is only serving to increase your anxiety. Next, you challenge a thought by asking some questions such as, is it realistic to expect perfection from myself? What's the worst that could happen if I do happen to make a mistake? Are there any instances where making mistakes may lead to positive outcomes or even some big learning experiences? As you weigh up the evidence, you realize that making mistakes is a natural part of life and it's a natural part of the learning process. And it doesn't necessarily lead to catastrophic consequences. You then come up with a more realistic and more balanced thought, like making mistakes is normal and it provides an opportunity for growth and improvement. You can take it one step further and preempt the mistake by thinking, you know what, I will indeed make mistakes at some part, but I also want to see what I can learn from this situation. When you preempt the possible mistake, it doesn't faze you so much because you expect it to happen. With this newfound perspective, you feel less burdened by the fear of making mistakes. And if anything, you'll be learning and pushing the boundaries and possibly making mistakes and learning along the way. With this, you're able to approach your work with a greater sense of ease and confidence, knowing that you know what? It's okay to not be perfect. Having said that, let's run through a 5-step process of how you conduct a cognitive restructuring process. These steps for cognitive restructuring is based on the American Psychological Association handout that you can implement when stress starts to take its toll. Step 1, the situation. Write down the upsetting situation. It might be an actual event, such as arguing with someone at work, or memory of an event, such as thinking about a disaster. In either case, just write one sentence down describing the situation. Step 2, the feeling. Identify the most upsetting feeling that you had in that situation. Yes, sometimes you may have had more than one, but really focus on identifying the strongest and most upsetting feeling. It's easiest to focus on 4 broad feelings: fear and anxiety, sadness and depression, guilt and shame, and anger. Pick one of these 4 feelings and work through all 5 steps with this feeling. For example, anger might be the strongest feeling associated with arguing with someone at work, while guilt may be the strongest feeling associated with the thought of jumping in and being defensive before trying to find out the background circumstance. If you had more than one strong feeling about a given situation, complete a cognitive restructure on the strongest feeling before moving on to the next one. Then you rinse and repeat as often as necessary. Step 3, the thought. Identify your thoughts about the situation that are underlying your upset feelings. If you're unsure what those thoughts are, ask yourself the following questions depending on what your upset feelings were. For fear or anxiety, ask yourself, what bad thing do I expect to happen? What kind of danger am I in? For sadness or depression, ask yourself, what have I lost hope in? What is missing in my life or in me? For guilt or shame, ask yourself, what bad thing have I actually done? What's wrong with me? For anger, ask yourself, what is unfair about this situation? Who has wronged me? These questions can help you identify the thoughts that are upsetting you the most. Try to be as specific as possible when identifying upsetting thoughts. For example, the thought, I'm angry because I was assured that A, B, and C will be done by today. And now it's time to present the solution. That person didn't deliver on their word, making the team and I look incompetent. This, as you can see, is much more specific than simply saying, someone screwed up. Similarly, the thought, if I thought in with Mr. Jones every now and again to ensure progress, this is more specific than, I'm just a terrible manager. You may have several upsetting thoughts related to the solution. The following questions may help you identify other upsetting thoughts about the given situation. What would it mean if X, Y, and Z actually happened? If X, Y, and Z happened, what would happen then? What would be so bad about X, Y, and Z actually happening? Write down all of the upsetting thoughts about the situation. All the ones that you can actually think of. When you're done, go through each thought and choose the one that is the most upsetting or distressing to you. Circle that thought on the list. That's a thought that you'll be working on for the remaining steps. I know this is a big topic here and I don't want to overload you, so we'll halt it right there. Hopefully you've taken down notes and can backtrack on what we have said and put these concepts into action. That is the only way that we can improve on these steps, is to put them into action. Enjoy the week ahead and keep striving for improvement. And I'll catch you in the next video.